All right, so again, we're returning these errors, and let's scroll back down to where we established that here. Now, if there are errors, we're going to display the errors, and then we'll return the add edit form. We need to pass it the unique identifier for this record, and we'll pass it the options again. But we're not going to do this because as we submitted this form, we're assuming that we're passing validation. So we're going to jump to this part. And just like before, we're going to need to clean up the data that was submitted in each one of these inputs. We'll do that by trimming them and by running them through MySQL real escape string. Just like we've done several times before in this CRUD script, we're going to run through a for each loop, looping through each element in the add edit columns array. In this first part, we're not doing any cleaning, but we're just reorganizing the data. We're creating an array called clean columns, and then we're looping through that array, doing the cleaning here with MySQL real escape string and trim, and assigning that to the clean values array. I'm going to scroll down a bit here. In this next line, so we have a clean copy of our clean values array. We're copying it over to the update values variable. Next, we're unsetting the unique identifier column inside of this array. This is so that we can concatenate these values later on. Again, when we're updating or adding a record, we don't want to set the unique identifier column. In this case, it won't throw an error because it should be identical to what's in the database, but it's a bit cleaner to avoid updating that altogether. Next, we're doing a similar thing with the column names by copying clean columns over to the update columns variable, and then unsetting the first item in that, which we know, because we set this ourselves, is the ID column. Now, if that ID column is empty inside of clean values, we're going to insert a new record. In this case, we're actually updating, so we'll run this code here. The basic structure of our query is update, and then the name of our table, set, and then a list of key value pairs where the key is the name of the column, and the value is the value we're going to set for that column. And then for the where part of this query, we're pulling the unique identifier column name here. So this is going to say PID, if this is a products record we're dealing with, equals, and then inside of clean values, we're going to have the unique identifier here, which will be a number. And so the bulk of what's different here is this update query part. And all we do is run through the update columns. Again, update columns is a list of all the columns in the add edit columns option inside of our options, but minus the unique identifier column. So we're going to loop through each one of those and add a space, the column name, equals, and then in quotes, the value, which is in the clean values array. Once we have this array, then we're going to implode it with a comma. And then this update query is what we add here after the set keyword. And then we add a notice for the SQL that we just ran, just so we can see what it looks like. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. So now we add a notice, and this looks a little complicated here. We're just running a ternary operator that checks to see whether a unique identifier exists for this, which is an indicator as to whether this is an edit form or an add form that we just processed. If it doesn't exist, then we're going to say and then the name of the type of data, in this case product, was added. If this was an edit form, then this ID would exist, and so we're going to say and then the name of the record type was updated.